We are live. All right. So I'll do a little intro here. I want to welcome everyone to the Keeping the Beat series. It's sponsored by the Tennessee Music Educators Association and in sponsorship with the CMA Foundation in Nashville. Beginning next week, we're moving to 3 days per week. So tune in Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn from and interact with music professionals from around the globe, representing every facet of the vast world of music. We encourage those watching in real time, and we know we're going to have a ton watching in other time zones after the fact tonight, to consider applying for our program. I've asked Alexis, Catherine, and Carrie from our Keeping the Beat team tonight to post the application link in the comments through our program. We welcome hosts from all over the world and hope this program will be as diverse and welcoming as possible. So no matter what country you're in, please apply. If you have a message to share, we would love to have you. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. My name is Julie Hill. I am the chair of the music department at the University of Tennessee at Martin. I am a percussionist by trade and a founding member proudly of Keeping the Beat. Tonight, I have the tremendous pleasure of hosting Tim Ries and Bernard Fowler, who have played with more artists than I can count, but many of you will know them from being long-term performers with the Rolling Stones. Bernard for more than 30 years to my Google research, and Tim for more than 20. I encourage those viewing on live stream to interact with our artists tonight. Let's keep it fun, casual, ask questions, comments, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. And I'm just so inspired by these two beautiful humans, and we are gonna kick the show off now. Gentlemen, I thought the first questions that we could ask this evening are, for those watching, how did you get to where you are, your positions, your careers? What are some, what's your background, and how did you become, you play with so many people, but the Stones position is really cool. So how did your life path lead to where you are today? And I think you could just take turns on that.
B?
Sure.
Go.
You go, B.
Ooh. I'm gonna try to answer the question without being too long-winded. How did I get with this? Okay. Well, I guess by playing a lot is how I ended up getting there. Playing a lot, playing enough that someone noticed me and introduced me to them. I was actually singing for Herbie Hancock when I did my first session for a Rolling Stone, and that was Mick Jagger's first solo album. So I was on tour with Herbie. I had a 10-day break, flew to London, got a call from producer Bill Laswell to go to London. So I flew to London. I walked into a room and there was a guy sitting on the floor. It was Mick Jagger, and he was strumming. I was humming. And, next thing I know, I meet the rest of the boys, and here we are, 30 some odd years later.
Bernard, where did you grow up?
New York City. I'm native New Yorker, born and raised New York City. Long Island City in Queensbridge projects, probably most well known because Brother Nas, the rapper Nas, is from my neighborhood, who I knew as a kid, and I used to do sessions with his father, Olu Dara, who was a cornet player. And yeah, that's where I'm from.
Okay, Tim, your turn.
Well, first of all, again, Julie, thank you for having us, and it's great to be here. So as far as the Rolling Stones, like Bernard, I guess it's just all those years sort of lead you to a place where a gig like that can happen. I grew up in Detroit and playing gigs with my father's band, and just started playing with all the local guys in Detroit. And eventually a good friend of mine, actually, Greg Bissonette, he's a drummer from there who now lives in LA. He convinced me to go to school in Texas. And I was like, Texas, why would I go there? And he played me a recording of the 1 O'Clock Lab Band in North Texas, and it was phenomenal. So I was roommates with Greg, and so after that, I got the gig with Maynard Ferguson because Greg recommended me. So it was like, connecting with really good friends kind of got me out of Detroit to school, and then started gigging. And then I moved to New York, and started doing session work like Bernard, just playing with everybody possible, and having great experiences with jazz and Latin and hip hop and everything, recording sessions. And there was a horn section in New York that was playing with the Rolling Stones, trombonist Mike Davis, Kent Smith on trumpet, Andy Snitzer on sax. And I did a ton of recording dates with those guys in New York. Bernard, just playing. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think we're okay, sorry.
Okay. So anyway, the horn section, Andy Snitzer left to go with Paul Simon, and they called me and said, would you want to do the gig? Because it's saxophone and keyboards and organ. And it was kind of like a dream. It's hard to imagine that this happened. And I got the news actually while playing at the White House for President Clinton. We were playing, and he's a saxophone player. So we're talking saxophone shop. And I said, you're not going to believe this, but I just got a call from the Stones. So I'll be leaving from here to go to rehearsals in California.
That's super cool. Very exciting. So you two have bonded through that relationship, though. You have side projects. You're working on all kinds of, I know you have many side projects, but the two of you together are working on a new album right now. Could you talk about that a little bit?
We're actually formulating it. We've been talking about doing this thing for a long time. And now with this Corona shutdown, we've got nothing but time.
Right.
So I guess it's time to get it done, time to do it. So, we're still sourcing material, thinking about material. And as a matter of fact, if anybody listening, if they have any ideas for songs they'd like to hear us do, please be my guest. We're taking all suggestions. We're at the infancy of, this project. So there's a lot of room to grow.
And Bernard can sing anything. I mean, when you see Bernard on the stage with the Rolling Stones, of course, it's the greatest rock band in the world. But as he mentioned, Herbie Hancock, but he can, he grew up listening to Latin music. So we're both jazz musicians, but we're both rock musicians, but we're both, it doesn't really matter. It's just great music. So we've been inspired by, everything from soul to R&B. So this recording, we talked about like, okay, what artists, what songs, and what genre. So I don't think we want to become too okay, we're going to do this way. Because I think things grow naturally as it starts happening. And a good friend of mine, this guy, Brian Camillo, has this label called Artist Share, which is an amazing platform for musicians like Bernard and myself and lots of other musicians, where people can go and be really part of the project as at the infancy stage, as B mentioned, that we're thinking about songs. So maybe what we'll do is go to the Artist Share website or Bernard's and mine. In the next few days, this is all just happening right now. We just decided to do this. Like, okay, B, let's do it. Yes. So Artist Share will have a platform. People can go and they can vote on songs, and they can say this suggestion for this song. And I can really hear Bernard sing. So maybe we'll take requests from all these people and whittle it down to maybe 10 or 12 songs, and that'll be the project.
Tim, could you talk a little bit about the proceeds of that album? Because I thought that was beautiful.
Well, we're trying to do this thing. So the money will go to Artist Share, and then it'll be distributed in such a way where we're going to have a percentage go to the COVID, musicians who were affected by this. So, and in fact, a friend of ours, trumpet player Wallace Roney, who Bernard and I just did a gig with in August at the Jazz Standard in New York, and it's part of this movie that we're part of called The Jazz Griots, and the director Jordan Walker Perlman is directing it, and so Wallace was part of the gig. He's on the gig. We did it. He sounded incredible, and then this thing hit, and all of a sudden the news came out that he died, and it just totally freaked us out. But so a lot of musicians, we could list a whole bunch of great musicians who have already passed away because of this. So kind of like their family, like Wallace has kids, and thinking like, okay, maybe if this percentage can go to help out in any way. that would be great.
Every
That's
little
beautiful.
bit helps.
That's a great cause and a wonderful project. I'm so glad y'all are doing that. We've got one question I want to field right now from Todd Shipley in Tennessee. And he's a big music advocacy person in our state. What is the best advice you'd give a student who is serious about making a living as a professional musician and session player? How important is it for students to be literate and well-versed in a variety of genres and idioms?
You want to answer? You want to answer?
Well, I think in a way, it's what we just talked about. I didn't grow up playing gigs thinking I will end up with the Rolling Stones. It was just a matter of when a call for a gig came, I just said yes. And it didn't really matter. Oh, I'm going to be only this. I'm just going to play jazz gigs. It was like, yeah, I'll do this Latin gig. I'll do this gig. I'll play this dance. I'll play that. It was just a matter of if I can play a gig with great musicians, having fun. So yes, the answer being well-versed in all kinds of, I would say this, if you're 10 years old and you're a classical pianist or a violinist and your goal is to be a soloist, that's a whole other level of, 10, 12 hours a day of just learning that repertoire. That's
Right.
pretty different. But if he specifically wants to be a session musician and play and be versatile, like that, you just had Jeff Coffin and Victor Wooten on recently, and great example of people who great musicians playing with Dave Matthews. So, and Victor, they can do anything. So the idea is to be open and learning and being, hey, you know what? And Bernard is like, I have to give it up to him because he's like, sometimes I'll throw him in a situation with these musicians he's never met, and he comes on stage and it just like, he just makes it happen. Every note out of his mouth is just like, passionate. So it's like everything works. He's not afraid to take chances. And I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim. He always throws me in the middle of the stuff. Of the shit, I'll say. We're not on television. I can cuss a little bit.
It's slightly busy, but yeah. I'm a drummer, so I cuss.
Oh, you cuss a lot.
I'm a non-cusser.
No, but yeah, I just want to add to that. Yeah, if that's what you want to do, go play. Go play. Go play again. Go find somebody else to play with. I always say, what has allowed me to swim in all these different pools is that I was open to hearing it, and I enjoyed what I was listening to, and it just happened to be a lot of different stuff, and when I was growing up in my neighborhood, there was a particular sound that people listened to, but I kind of went against the grain. I listened to stuff that they weren't listening to, the stuff they were listening to, and you play, and that stuff sticks with you. It becomes part of you. And then when you're put in when you're put in a situation that you're not used to being in, those things come back to you to use. You find use for them.
Bernard, this is a personal question, but I was doing some research on you, and I'm a big Philip Glass fan, and I thought that was so cool that you had worked with him. How did that come to be?
I think it was I think it was Bill Laswell again, because around that time I was doing so much different kind of stuff. Also, around that time was when Public Image, Johnny Rotten's band Public Image, Bill was doing a record called Album. Album. It's like the generic record. The album was called Album. The CD was called CD. And the musicianship on that record, on that rock record's incredible. Ginger Baker had come back from Europe. He hadn't been seen for years. Bill Laswell went to Italy, found him. I remember him saying he got to Ginger Baker's house and there was a horse in his living room.
What?
You know, he hadn't seen, no one had seen Ginger. Bill talked him into coming back to record that project. Also on that project was Tony Williams.
Oh my God.
Playing rock and roll drums. And soon after that, well, I remember leaving the studio once with Tony and Bill, and we were talking, and Tony Williams was going to start a rock and roll band, and I was going to front that band. 2 weeks later, he died.
Oh.
When I went into that session, when I went to the studio, it was a lot of it was recorded at Electric Lady, and I remember walking in and I could hear guitar, and I'm like, who the hell is playing that guitar like that? And I remember walking in, and I walked in, I think I walked to the control room and said, who the fuck is playing guitar? And they pointed to the room in there, and I looked, and it was a young Steve Vai.
Wow.
You know, around that time, that record was made, and then I got a call from Michael Reisman, who was, I think, producer, arranger with Philip Glass, and they asked me to come to the studio. I was just as surprised then as you are now to find out that I worked with him. I was surprised, and I think it was from doing a lot of stuff with Bill that. Oh, also, and at that time I had a band called the New York City Peach Boys. And we had a record that was playing on the radio every 5 minutes. So maybe it could have been that. So to answer your question, I'm not really sure how I got that call.
That's pretty cool though. I love it.
No, it's very cool. It was one of the best music experiences of my life. And I even got to go on the road with him.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to update you all. I know we're going to have tons of people that wake up in different time zones and see this after the fact, but we have viewers right now in Tennessee, New York, Toronto, Canada, Michigan, and Cornwall in the UK. So I want y'all to know you have a lot of people watching.
Right on.
Hello to everybody.
Right on.
From Dennis Hotston, I assume you all know some of these fans, veteran of over 40 Stones concerts since 1981 from Brantford, Ontario, Canada.
All right, Canada. Love Canada.
We do too.
Love Canada.
The liberals in our country love Canada.
Love Canada.
And from Chris Egan, hi guys, I remember Amsterdam many years ago. Bernard sang the best version of Ruby Tuesday I've ever heard, listening in from Cornwall, UK.
Oh, right on.
And I have a few questions. Are y'all good with some questions now? Is that?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it, Jules.
Okay. Dennis Houston. Bernard, that's my nickname. You got it.
Hey, I knew that.
No, it is.
I knew that.
We didn't even talk about that.
See?
Dennis Houston asked, Bernard, what was the Mick Jagger solo tour in Australia like? I don't know what that means. Must be interesting.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think that's when I actually fell in love with that country. I fell in love with Australia during that tour. It was a lot of fun. I mean, he only had some of the hottest musicians, you know, in that band. There was Joe Satriani, Simon Phillips, Doug Wimbish, Jimmy Rip, Phil Ashley, Jeff Beck left the day after I joined. It was incredible. You know, I'm trying to picture myself being there the first time with my eyes wide open. I was going to say I had never traveled that far, but I don't think any of us had ever traveled that far. But it was a great time, great experience. I think during that tour, that was the first time, this is something that I'm remembering about that tour, was the first time in Mick Jagger's long career that he had ever had to cancel a gig was during that tour.
Wow. Thank you for the response. I have another question from Ed Freitag, who is my colleague in Tennessee, where I live. He's a great music educator, and he says, apart from being massively musically prepared for major artist opportunities, what other aspects, sorry, there's some typos here, so I'm trying to correct.
I thought you said he was a teacher.
He is. But my team are translating this so that to make it easy for me. What other aspects of you as personal needs to get, sorry, there are too many, I'm trying to translate this. To get apart from being massively musically prepared for music artist opportunities, what other aspects of getting a gig would you recommend to others to land it?
Play what you mean and mean what you play all the time.
That was very emphatic. I like it. Tim, same?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it, like anything in life, you want to be with your friends. So like generally, you know, a friend is going to recommend you to something because you were hanging with this person, you had a good vibe, and on stage it felt good. And I think the other thing is, like, you want to be on stage with the same people you want to be off stage with. So you, after the gig, when the gig ends, you don't just like, okay, see you guys. It's like you go have a drink, you go have a meal. You know, it becomes a family. So it's really the connection of how you relate to that other musician.
No, and that relates a lot to the projects you all are working on. So how did you all connect and, you know, want to do the new album together and all these side projects that you have? You obviously resonated.
Well, look, it's all Tim's fault.
I have to pay him a lot of money.
No, it's all his fault. No, this is really true because, you know, we're on the road with the Rolling Stones, and Tim calls me and says, "Hey B, let's go play," and gets me in trouble every time.
That is not true. It's the other way around. He calls me. You know what? I think because I only met Bernard with the Rolling Stones, so that was 22 years ago. And after a tour or two, I don't sleep very much. And the Stones, they play 2 or 3 nights a week, and that's
how they do
now. So maybe even at the most three times a week. So that's 4 nights where I'm not playing, and I have to play all the time. You know, it's almost like being, you know, I'm just used to, like, so I wanted to practice and play, and I used to go and sit in at clubs whatever city we went. And I thought I had this idea, which Bernard was involved with both of these, the Rolling Stones project, which I took the Stones music and put it to jazz and world music. And then everywhere we went, we recorded with different people around the world, and we started doing gigs. It's like, hey, we have a Tuesday night off in Chicago or Minneapolis or Detroit. And we would play with local bands. So Bernard and I would go and sit in and play kind of our arrangements with that. And then we did a couple of CDs with that. And then this recording, which we're talking about, is kind of going to the next step where, okay, we've done Stone songs. And of course, we love the music. Now it's like, for instance, we do, when we're on the gig, Bernard will do as an encore, maybe, you know, Sam Cooke, some of his music and like trace people out. So then it was the idea, okay, maybe we could do some other music, some other R&B and soul artists with the way we do it, you know, like our putting our slant on it, you know, and then having our friends in LA and New York and various people around the world who were going to play on this recording.
Mm.
So you guys, just interesting to see the layers of management and trying to produce this show, and obviously being with the Stones. I don't want to make this all about the Stones. I want to make it about you two, but that's cool. So what are the layers of touring, the stratification of, you know, are the four original guys still on a bus? And, you know, I know y'all have been long-term, there's a difference between members and performers that are members basically, but can y'all just comment on, and I said y'all, I'm in the South, how that works just in dynamics with the touring season?
You know, back in the old days, man, being on the bus was such a drag. So happy that, you know, they sold a few records so we didn't have to take that bus anymore. Now, I'm only kidding. I was never on a bus with the Rolling Stones. They were always, I mean, they were, Rolling Stones were, I mean, I listened to the Stones growing up, which is really strange how, you know, I go from, the first record my father ever gave me was a Rolling Stone record. So it's really funny that I end up spending 30 something years with that. My first record my dad ever bought me was a Rolling Stone record. But, you know, one thing that all of us, we love about the gig is that when we're traveling, we are always together. We're always together. We're always in the same plane, and you know, it's usually a charter, and it's a blessing. And you know, we stay in the same hotels. You know, we go to visit each other's rooms at night, or we'll see you at dinner. You know, back in the beginning, the early days, you know, things were a little wilder, wouldn't you say, Tim? Things are a lot calm compared to the way they were. We don't do bad things anymore.
See, I never did that. I'm very, you know,
liar.
I read books.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's absolutely a fantastic gig, and if you want to see how it's done correctly, I guess correct is different for everybody, but if you really want to see how it's done, the Rolling Stones can show you. Oh, look at the little kitty.
Look at our kitty. She's so excited to listen to you all. She's very shy.
Wow.
Oh, okay, little cat. You're
Nice.
Beauty.
You're off. All right.
Yeah, Julie, I mean, basically, it's like I was saying, you know, really, you're on the stage for 2 hours a night. And the rest of the time, you're really on the road for 3 months. Like, if you get 3 month, 4 month, 5 month tour. So same plane, same hotels, hanging out on off nights, going to eat. So it's a big family that is really on the road 24/7. So, I mean, of course, you can lock your door and go sleep, but it's kind of a weird thing. And Bernard can tell you, like, probably similar. When the tour ends, it's a very strange feeling because you're kind of ready to finish. Let's say it's a 3 month tour. You're like, okay, it's 3 months. I want to go home. I want to see my kids. I'm going to be home cooking and writing music. But it's a weird transition because that's a family and you're going to your family. So you got to have both. But so then you're home for a while and you're like, okay, well, I'm ready to go back out. So this right now, we're supposed to be on tour, as you probably know. So this is weird because it's like, yes, we need the money like everyone. This is the freakiest period in our history in the last 100 years. But it's just more than even the money. It's the idea, like B and myself, I've been touring since 1982 with various different bands. So basically, if I don't get on a plane or go out of my house, I'm not making any money. So it's a very strange, you got to do it. It's weird because you miss your family like crazy at home, but you got to go because that's where you got to go to the mountain. It doesn't come to you.
That's right.
Okay, we've got some questions, you all. From Catherine Sam. Tim, as a band musician, what are rehearsals like? How often do you gig?
Wait, you better say that one more time.
Tim, as a band musician, what are rehearsals like? How often do you gig? I think you just answered that actually. So
With the Stones, you mean?
yeah. She doesn't say specifically. So
Well,
and Catherine's a former student.
We've been the Stones rehearse a lot. They rehearse now 3 weeks or so. In the old days, when I first got the gig, it was like 6 weeks. It was a lot of rehearsals. Now it's 2 or 3.
A lot of rehearsals, a lot of hours per day.
Yeah.
We get there at what, 1 or 2 o'clock, and sometimes wouldn't leave till 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it's a long, but they have to go through a lot of music.
How do you guys do that with being in the US? And, you know, I know they have different homes and place. Where do you rehearse? I hadn't thought about that.
All over the place. SIR, SIR, any rehearsal space that has a sound stage, we could possibly rehearse there. I remember once in the early days, I don't know I think it was right before Tim came, we would rehearse in south of Paris at a chateau, where the bottom floor would be cleaned out and the equipment would be set up in there. And, some of us would stay upstairs in the chateau, or, there would be a guest house around the corner.
Bernard, that sounds like a terrible experience.
You know what? It's so bad, man. I don't wish that on anybody.
No, that's so cool. Okay, this is from my husband. You guys met him earlier, but David Coffey, my husband, asked, Bernard, you sang with Lisa for a long time. You had such a good chemistry. How has the transition to Sasha gone?
Yeah, it's gone all right. I would say, at the very beginning, of course, just trying to find your way and trying to, trying to make sure the blend is right. I mean,
because you guys dance a lot too, right?
Yes, but I think Lisa and I used to dance a lot more than Sasha and I. Lisa and I had been doing the gig together, for like 20 something years. So Lisa and I just had a thing, and I've known her forever. I knew Lisa before we started singing with the Stones. So it wasn't exactly a smooth transition, but once we got it in there and, were able, because it was just Lisa and I singing, Lisa and I developed a way to sing big, to make it 2 people sound like 3 people, or in some cases 4 people. So I don't know if Sasha had ever experienced that or had to experience it. So, I had to kind of share that knowledge with her. And and I guess it's about right now.
Got it. Okay, we got another
Thank
one.
you for that question, David.
Thank you, sir.
He's in the room. Thank
I
you,
know.
Bernard. Okay, this is kind of company related, but from Pamela Green Stevens, she wants to know, Tim, do you play a Selmer sax? I have 2 kids who play sax. They're both music educators, so very company friendly.
I do, yes. But it's funny because a friend of mine who lives, I have a house in New Jersey, so he has a company, RS Berkeley is the name of the company, and he has these horns called the Virtuoso. So I kind of helped him design this instrument. But traditionally, the horn that I played since childhood is Selmer, and that's kind of like what Coltrane played, and Dexter Gordon, and a dear friend of mine, Michael Brecker, who was a saxophone player who was died 12, 13 years ago, and I started playing one of his horns because he was such a good friend. And now that I have that horn, it's really hard not to play that because it's just a beautiful instrument. So the answer is yes, I do play summer.
So I'm going to change the conversation a bit here since I've done some research. Tim, I want you to talk a little bit about the Universal Spirits project, what that is, what it will help musicians do. And I'm so pumped about this. So if you could enlighten everyone on this.
Well, this was something almost from childhood that I wanted to do something with music as it related to connecting people, like the stuff Bernard and I were talking about, like on the stage and in the hotels and in the planes, that kind of connection that we have normally. And even the people in the audience can feel that connection. Like, I think the main thing is like having this, like the soul to soul connection, because when Bernard and Lisa sing, it's more than the fact, yes, they've known each other, but there's some other element that happens. In fact, there was a scientist in Sweden that did a study, and he actually went into a church and monitored the heart rates of all the people in the church, like 100 people. And they started singing this hymn together, and within seconds, everybody's heart rate is the same.
Wow.
So music is on a level beyond what we know. We kind of feel it and know it, but this was even scientifically proven that there's a reason where churches, synagogues, mosques, and there's a reason that they're singing, because that brings people together. You're singing to a higher spiritual thing, but you're also connecting to the person next to you. So in a way, that's kind of where it started. And then on a deeper level, it started because I wanted to think, what can I do to bring peace in the Middle East? Believe it or not, as a musician, because musicians can make changes in the planet. So between Israeli, Palestinian, Lebanese, Afghani, so this band started kind of forming with all these people from South Africa. So the band is kind of a real world on stage. And the idea is to compose music together, film, record, take that group on tour, go to different schools in different neighborhoods, and then work with students. And then so that really we're in Iowa or Wisconsin or Michigan or Tennessee, and we're doing a concert there. So the music's going to be great because it's going to be filled with great musicians. But more than anything, we're going to connect with that community more than just, okay, we're showing up for 2 hours and splitting. We want to come a day or two before, work in the schools, work with kids, teaching them music, and then having them come up on stage for the finale and maybe have a group of musicians from students playing with us. So it's kind of, this is the Cliff Notes 101 version. It's like having local ambassadors for peace around the world so that we touch the lives of children, especially because we have to get the next generation to make changes in the world. I mean, it's hard to change people's minds who are 50 and 60 years old. They kind of like have their thing, like it's really difficult to change the dynamics of people like opening their minds. But I think music, it can open the minds of Republicans, Democrats, whatever, independent, whatever you are, you can show up and hear music and not think about that. You can show up and just be affected by the beauty of the music and the vibration of the soul.
Wow. Yes. Namaste. My God.
I have to try.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, I've told you before, that's my mission statement, and I don't want to talk about me, but Bernard, how are you involved in this project? And my God, this is just amazing. I'm so excited about this.
This is Tim's baby. I'm here to do whatever he needs.
He's going to be like the guest everywhere I go. He'll be like because whatever he sings is magic. So,
Clearly. Wow, that's really, really exciting. Okay, we have tons of questions that have come in. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we talked about that. Okay, from Pat Rayner.
Oh,
hey, Pat.
Okay, sorry, fist bump for Pat.
We got a security. We can't take this question.
Okay, I'll read
it. I'm kidding.
Okay, what
He's our travel agent.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Thanks for signing on. What do you think will happen with live music venues? What can the fans do to help support you?
What do you think is going to happen with live? Well, I think there'll always be live venues. I just think it's going to be a little while now before we can perform and get people in those seats. I think this this distance thing is going to go on for a while, and forget about stadiums and arenas. I don't see that happening for a while. But how they can help, you know, we're all trying to think of things, you know, other ways of sharing our music with people, which is probably, you know, close to what we're doing now. So, you know, please support your local musicians. They need help, and they are going to need help. It's going to get rough. It's going to get rough. So hold on to your seatbelts.
You know, it's weird because, like, I remember one of my first gigs was with this guy, Donald Byrd, who was a famous musician. And he was always talking about like the history of music, but what was happening socially and politically at the time that music was happening. And I remember him talking about the Great Depression. He goes, the one thing about depression is everyone wants to hang and party and listen to music. So like, viva la depresión. But now this is the craziest time because you can't even leave your house. So you can't get together with friends. You can't hug somebody at a funeral. You can't, like, you're not feeling good. You're like, man, this is some drag. I want to go hang out with some friends and meet at a bar, and there's a great band playing there. At least we have that. We don't have that.
Exactly. Everything's on hold.
Sorry, B, go ahead.
No, I was just saying everything's on hold.
But go to artistshare.com, and it's not just our group. There's other groups that you can support, and I'm sure there's other a lot of people wanting to release records right now. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff you could listen to and support the musicians. And this, the good thing about Artist Share is it goes to us, which means we can pay our musicians who do this, and we can help the people with the COVID. So it's like, it's not like your head getting into the big companies, which we get about a nano %. This is like directly related to people we're going to hire to record it, and to the COVID families.
Yeah, and I'm working with a new group called Alert the Globe, and they are streaming bands, you know, from all over California, and I'm sure they're expecting to venture out to other areas. But you can go online now and see some of the things that they're streaming. It's just go to alerttheglobe.com.
Wow. Okay, you guys are getting a lot of Stones comments, and I don't know if that makes you upset, or is that okay?
Why not?
Okay. All right. So Brad Faust, who's in my state of Tennessee, asks, how long have you played with the Stones before you stopped pinching yourself every day and felt like a part of the group? We know where there's the 4 original members, and then, but you guys, 30 years, 20 years, you're the band. How does that affect you? I mean, I've worried about that too for you, just not worried, but wanted to get feedback.
It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing. It has gotten me a lot of gigs, and it has prevented me from a lot of gigs.
How has it prevented you?
You know, it's funny. You know, when you are playing with someone like that, and that gig ends, I think a lot of times people won't call you because they think that you're going to charge them too much money. It is a blessing and a curse. I remember when Daryl Jones first got the gig, when he took Bill Wyman's place. I remember saying that to him, telling him, yo, man, it's a blessing and it's a curse. And I told him why. And after we came off the road a few months, he was like, Bernard, you were right. People don't want to call me because they think I'm going to charge them a ridiculous amount of money. No, we are not Rolling Stones. We work with them.
Well,
when that tour ends, we don't have the luxury of just sitting home and doing nothing.
Right.
You know, we as soon as that tour ends, we hit the ground running to the next gig.
Got it. Couple of points here related to that. You've got lots of people chiming in. Fernando Maggi says, guys, please describe your experience in Argentina with the project.
Fernando, I know
You
Fernando.
know Fernando because I don't understand that.
Describe what?
Describe your experience in Argentina with, quote, the project. I don't know what that means.
Well, I don't know what that means either, but I will say this. Out of every audience that I've ever played for with the Rolling Stones, I've never seen an audience like Argentina. Never. 80,000 people doing this at the same time and singing loud. And they don't just leave it at the stadium. We get to the hotel, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you wake up to people singing outside the window. Never experienced anything like that in any other country. Have you, Tim?
No, it's. I mean, the closest maybe is Spain or Italy, but no, it's still. It's. I mean, in Europe, I mean, Denmark and
Germany.
the Netherlands. I mean, there's great fans everywhere, but it's just. I think it's the idea of what the Stones' music meant to them during the difficult periods they were having politically. I think the freedom of the music, and so when we go there, you can't imagine. It's like being at a football match, and we are the football players surrounded by that.
You know what? It's the closest thing that we've ever seen to the way it was for them in the 60s. You know, with the screaming fans, you know, the really excited fans. I wasn't there. I wasn't with the Stones for that. But when we go to Argentina, that's the energy. It's just incredible.
No, and I think that there's a lot of interest in terms of what's happened in Cuba with the Stones, and also my specialty is Brazilian percussion, and I know that you guys have been there a lot, and so I have a lot of connections that really admire you all in Brazil too. So,
well, that was the biggest show we ever played with the Stones was in Copacabana Beach. It was 1.5 million people.
It's a big place.
Yeah, as far as the eye could see, you couldn't see the end of the people, or you couldn't see the end of the boats in the ocean. It was incredible. We couldn't leave the hotel. It was so many people just in the street. They had to build a bridge from the hotel over the street to the stage.
Where did you guys stay there? I'm just curious because I saw Mick posting from there.
We stayed at
Copacabana Hotel.
No, I know that hotel. That's great.
And yeah, like you said, we couldn't cross the street. There were so many people. They had to build an actual bridge over the street. And you know, I have to say, Brazil. And if you're a percussionist, you know this. And it's one of I love Elis Regina's. I listen to her almost every day. But the music of Brazil, all the different regions, you could spend your whole life as a study of that music. But something that's unique about Brazil that doesn't happen almost anywhere. Any Brazilian from any age, if a teenager up to somebody 70 years old, can pick up a guitar and play the music of their country, and they know all the songs by Jobim. They know all the songs from Caetano Veloso. They know
of course,
Milton Nascimento. They know all the music, and it's like that's so cool to see because in the United States, that's not really a thing. Everyone has their little categories. Even if you like rock or if you like this, you still know your country's like beautiful music from all the great composers.
Totally, Tim. I don't want to talk much, but that's why I'm a Brazilophile, because you turn off the volume on the TV, they're watching soccer, and then everyone's like grandmas are cooking, but people are just singing, playing choro and playing pagode, and but people that are 80 to 20 to 17. And that's what I love about that country so much. Everybody knows the tunes. It's great. All right, we've got more questions.
What was it like to go to Cuba?
What was it like to go to Cuba? Talk to us about that.
Well, for me as an American citizen, it was, Cuba was always this big, whatever, like the Cold War. It had this, these people who were just below Florida, and you could spit at it and you could hit Cuba. I mean, it's so close, but it's this small island of amazing people, and of just like Brazil, the music is phenomenal. And like that, there's so many people just on the streets playing music. So for me, I love Brazil. I love Cuban music. Cuba is the direct link to Africa. Like the drummers there, and you can really hear. In fact, the tour the Stones did when we went to South America, we went to Chile, we went to Uruguay, we went to Brazil. That connection is so deep that from Africa to Cuba, and then from Cuba to New York, where the music that we were inspired by, that line is all. So for me, going to Cuba was like a lifelong dream, to go be there, to hear the music there, and to experience. Even though I played with a lot of Cuban musicians in the United States, it was very special to land on those shores and go, okay, we're here.
Did that music impact what you all did there, or did you collaborate with musicians locally?
Not so much with the Stones during our time there, but I was in Cuba. I think 8 or 9 months before the Stones went. I went with a bunch of musicians, and we did interact with the local musicians. We actually went to the studio and recorded with them.
And there was one night where Mick went to a club and then set up a hang for everybody. So we went and sat in. And a good friend of mine from Cuba who lives in New York, Pedrito Martinez, you probably know if you're a percussion.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know Pedrito very well.
So he was one of my dear friends. When he moved to New York, he played on one of my records, and I played with him with Eddie Palmieri. But so Pedrito was there at the time. So he set up a hang with some local people. So yeah, we got
He's fantastic. Bernard, were you going to chime in on that more or no?
Say?
I didn't know if you wanted to comment more on Cuba. I thought you were. So.
No. I love being in Cuba. I grew up in New York City, as you know, and I grew up listening to salsa music. Salsa and soul music is what we listened to growing up. The beginning of the day started with Frankie Crocker, and the end of the night ended with Symphony Sid. So it was good to be there to see where a lot of the cats I grew up listening to came from.
I'm trying to vet the questions here for you both. When Keith pulls out, from Dennis Houston, when Keith pulls out his guitar, I don't understand this. McAlber? Sorry, it's a proper name. M-I-C.
Telecaster.
It's a Telecaster? M-I-C-A-W-B-E-R. Is it as exciting for you guys as it is for the audience? Sorry, these are very specific Stones questions.
Well, it's almost like going back to the question about what does it feel like? You still pinch yourself.
Right.
No matter how many years you play with them, when you're about ready to start the gig, and yes, Keith does the first chord, and the band starts, and then Mick shoots off in the middle of the stage, people freak out. So you can't help but the energy, the excitement. It's not like you can go, oh, another gig. It's like, wow, it's like every day is the first gig in a way.
It is.
Really.
It's wow. Yeah, like I think I said before, we see them before, Showtime, they're just mortal men. But the minute they hit the stage, they become superheroes.
I'm
So
just-
do you.
No, and so my husband, you can hear him. He says, so do you.
Right on, D.
He's grateful. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're like 3 minutes out. Some questions are coming in, but I want to also make sure that you all, Tim, have you been able to talk about the universal spirits as much as you want to and the recording projects, and Bernard, whatever, I know you guys are doing things together, but also separately. I want part of this to be about you being able to promote what you want to promote, because we will have a big audience, I think.
Well, the last tour, both Bernard and I released a CD at the same time. Mine is original music, and it's called Life Changes, and I recorded it actually 15 years ago, right before my mother died. And that whole period was like so weird. I couldn't release it then because it was too emotional. But my kids played on it. It's like every song on it really relates to somebody in my life. So 15 years later, it came out, and that's when so last summer I released it, and called Life Changes. So, you can go check that out. And Bernard released a great CD as well on LP.
Yes, the last record, the last project was called Inside Out, and which is a very interesting record. It's what I did was I took Rolling Stone lyrics, and the album is a spoken word album. So it was originally supposed to be just percussion and voice. I would recite the lyric in a poetry form. But as I got to recording, it just started to grow, and I was able to have some really great musicians playing on it. Tim Ries, Keon Harrell, Steve Jordan, Daryl Jones, Mike Garson from David Bowie, Walfredo Reyes, Lenny Castro, Michael Bearden, Jimmy Rip, Ron Jublia. It's an incredible record, if I must say so myself. And I remember making the record thinking Stones fans would crucify me. They were gonna love it or they were gonna hate it. And I got so much more love than hate. So if you do get a chance, I think if you're hardcore Rolling Stone fans, I think you'd love the take on it. And the record before that was called The Bura. I should have won the Grammy for that record, but they wouldn't know a good record if it slapped them upside the head. So they missed it.
Julie, since this is like a lot for your students around the country and around the world, and during this time, I would say, I have been just writing music on the piano. I wrote like 60 songs since January. This is a time to just kind of focus on your thing, write music, practice, exercise, eat good food, try to stay home as much as you can. And,
very important.
And this is a time where, all those friends and family, tell everybody you love them, because, the next day, something could like somebody gets sick, and they get sick quickly, and it's like in a week they're done. So it's a crazy time. So I would just say this is a time to really look inside the heart and write music and practice what you want to do.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
So you guys, we're getting close to the end here. We're at 8 o'clock, and I love that, Tim. Thank you so much. So David is, my husband is your age, basically.
42?
Yes, exactly. But what is the advice? I mean, it's hard right now to give advice because things are changing, but the critical key components that have helped you both be so successful. I mean, if you just want to narrow it down, what would those be? What should you do?
Play, play, and play. Don't be a know-it-all, and know when to keep your mouth shut and play. Nobody likes a producer trying to produce over their shoulders. You're not there to produce, you're there to play. So unless they ask you, shut the hell up and play what they want you to.
That's been a common denominator. I like that.
Am I wrong, Tim?
That's it. And basically be prepared as much as you can for when you get the call.
That's right. That's right. If you get the call today for tomorrow, do a little homework. Just be a little familiar. Don't go in cold, and always make it feel good. They'll be more impressed with how you make it feel than what you can do. It's gotta feel good all the time.
Love it.
So listen, Julie, we haven't even put this up on the site yet, but artistshare.com, go to Bernard's website, go to mine. Eventually, we'll have a list of songs. People can put in recommendations or requests, and we'll whittle it down to some of the best songs, and we'll start making this project hopefully in the next few weeks, and they'll be released maybe by the fall. And all the best to all the Stones fans who we couldn't be there live. We should have just played Vancouver, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, we're missing you guys.
So
we're missing you guys.
Hopefully in a year, maybe, with any luck, cross fingers.
You know, it's funny, after all these years, we still love the travel. We still love the playing. We still like the movement. And it's a drag that, you know, we're dealing with what we have, but it is what it is. And we got to try and make the best of it.
Well, you two have been fabulous tonight. I'm so inspired by you both, and I'm so grateful to have had you on the show. I'll give the little outro now. And I know that we...
Jules.
No, Bernard, that you just called me Jules. I can just die happy. So thank you so much. No, this has been fun. And the team we have on, they don't make any money to do this. We all just do it because we're teachers and players and want to help the cause for educators at home and artists, and give you guys a small honorarium that's not anything what you deserve, but just trying to help the movement. And so I'm grateful to you both. And I know we have people in other time zones. I mean, Tim was like, go 10 time zones. And he was so right. And I've had a lot of response from that, but I hope that people will sign in if they're sleeping tonight, waking up tomorrow, and knowing they get the support from you both, and they can apply to be on the show. And we really want to support young artists that are budding in their careers, but also stars like you all. So thank you for making this one of the most special shows we've had. You all are show 37.
All right.
And
thank you, gentlemen.
For having us.
Both. But
good to see you, Heavy D.
oh my God, David's gonna be so excited. But we're tuning off on Wednesday nights. We're in the South in the US, and there's a lot of church in the South. So we've been doing 4 nights a week, but we're going to Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays as of next week for the rest of the summer. Who knows how long we're going to continue this. We're talking about doing it for quite a while. But I want to encourage people to apply. We have Keith Peluso next week, one of our graduates at our school. He was one of the big stars on The Voice last week, and also, not last week, last year, and is singing lead with Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Right.
And was a previous park ranger. who wrote songs about park ranging. He's wonderful. Ayana Witter Johnson, who's a cellist, songwriter, just a rock star in the UK. So we really want to become more global and hope that people will apply. We encourage those watching in real time and after the fact to consider applying for our program. We want to make this not a US based thing, but just a global thing to help as many people as possible. Thank you all watching in real time. Thank you all watching when you wake up tomorrow after the fact. And I'm so honored that we've had these two amazing humans on the show. And I'm sorry if I've stumbled a bit, but I'm a little starstruck. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Julia. Really, that's beautiful.
That's right. And it's
Stay
not
healthy.
about perfection. It's about how good it feels.
I feel good, Bernard. I feel good. Thank y'all both.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.